Kyle.
Hey, Kyle.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me tonight.
And Phil Napolitano is studying for an exam, which I'm sure Abby would sympathize with, and will not be with us tonight. But we are expecting, we've not had any notice from other members of the committee that they're not going to be here. So we should have the quorum of 5 by the time we get to any votes on resolutions.
Okay, everything is going. You can start whenever.
Okay, thank you. And appreciate those of you who were here early. It's always much appreciated. Thank you. Members of the committee, that is, who were here early. So welcome to the February 23rd meeting of the CB6 Youth and Education Committee. My name is John Keller. I'm chair of the committee, and I am starting this meeting at 6:37 p.m. And the meeting is called to order, and we are joined by Community Associate Brendan Burth. Any members of the public who are present here can raise questions or comments that you have through the Q&A feature of Zoom. And if there is time following the committee's discussion, we will field questions from the public, and we always do that fairly informally on this committee because we don't have large attendances usually. Abby Kruzmark, thank you very much. Abby has volunteered to take minutes tonight. You all should have received several emails from the board office with a link to a doodle sign-up sheet for minute takers at your committee meetings this year. For your convenience, the link for this committee is also being posted in the chat right now. At the direction of the board chair, who is present with us this evening, each committee meeting must have a designated minutes taker and a designated backup, just in case. To eliminate the guesswork, make sure that you volunteer for as many slots in the doodle sign-up sheet as you can. If more than 2 people sign up for a particular month, the office will make sure to distribute the duties equitably and will let you know in advance which months you're due to take minutes. If you've not already filled out the doodle, please do so right away. The link to the doodle sign-up form is currently in the chat, so now would be a good time to fill it out. Hint, hint. Okay. And so we will now take attendance by roll call, and Brendan will conduct the roll call.
Azia Badi. Okay, Azia is not here yet. Looks like Neil is not here yet either. Elby's not here yet. John Keller.
Here.
Abigail Kruzmark.
Here.
Sean Sherman.
Here.
And Claudel Winfield.
Here.
Okay, just to note, we do not have quorum yet.
We're one short of a quorum, right? But we could.
Yeah, there are 8 committee members. We need 5 for quorum.
Yeah.
So if one more committee member shows up, we will have quorum, but at moment we do not.
Well, I'm betting that one more will show up, but we will keep going. Okay. The agenda for tonight's meeting was distributed ahead of time by the board office and is reflected on the screen before you. If there's no objection, we will adopt the agenda. Members of the committee, if you object to adopting the agenda, please raise your hand through Zoom. Seeing no objection, the agenda for tonight's meeting is adopted. And the minutes from the January 26th meeting, which were kindly taken by Phil, were distributed ahead of time by the board office. If there's no objection, we will adopt the minutes as drafted. Members of the committee, if you object to adopting the minutes, you may raise your hand through Zoom.
I would just say that I took the minutes, but I don't object to them.
Okay, I apologize. Seeing no objections and being corrected on who took the minutes are adopted. And I note that Neil Barclay has joined us, and so Brendan, can we note now that we do have a quorum? We do have a quorum present for our meeting. In order to conduct an efficient meeting, let's observe a few ground rules. No one may speak until granted the floor, though, as you know, we're fairly casual about that in this committee. Committee members, if you have a question about committee business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand through Zoom. If you click the participants icon, the participants panel should appear, and you should find the raise hand function there. If you still have a technical difficulty, you may click the chat icon and relay your difficulty, and there's also a raise hand function right on your screen as well. And this is important. The chat function should not be used for committee business or questions about agenda topics, because this meeting is being streamed to the public. All such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hand through Zoom. Chat should only be used to alert us to technical difficulties you're having, or to state in writing information like email addresses or doodle links that was already stated aloud on the record during the meeting. And when a committee member is given the floor to speak, I'll identify you, and you can unmute yourself so you can speak. But once again, we tend to be fairly flexible with that in this committee. We're required by the executive order, to create a verbatim transcript of the meeting. So please keep your questions and comments succinct and germane to the question. So let's follow the order of the adopted agenda. And first of all, so I would like to welcome and thank for his patience, Alexander Betancourt, who is going to be of the City Department of Youth and Community Development, who's going to make a brief presentation to us. And I've never met you. I just appreciate very much your being here. And the point is that this committee has been established now as the Youth and Education Committee of Community Board 6. And we want to just begin hopefully a productive and ongoing relationship with your group and with your department, and find areas where we can help you. I mean, the community board has a good reach across mid and up Midtown Manhattan, and up and across further downtown, and we'd really like to figure out how we can be of support to you and work with you. So welcome very much, Alexander. And just I have to remind you that you're still on mute. Alexander, you're still on mute. I'm sorry. There we go.
All right.
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
I love your screen background there. I wish wherever that might be.
Right?
I wish we might all be there.
It's really just the dream state that I'm in right now. Okay.
Well, that's to the end of February. That's a good state. Yeah. And welcome again.
It's wishful thinking, but we're getting there. Closer. We're closer every day. Thank you for the opportunity to present to your board and to all of your members. On behalf of Commissioner William Chang, I want to extend greetings to all of you and to thank you for the support that we have received from every citizen in the city during very trying times. I think part of what I can do is to give you an overview of who this agency called DYCD is. From a point of history, DYCD was created under the stewardship of then Mayor David Dinkins. His first commissioner was a gentleman by the name of Richard Murphy from the West Side, who used to run youth centers out in the West Side. But DYCD was an organization that was created out of 3 different city agencies and a merger that occurred during the Giuliani administration. DYCD initially was called the Youth Bureau. It then merged with the New York City Department of Employment. And there was a further merger with the New York City Community Development Agency. Out of that amalgam and that marriage of 3 agencies is who we have today as DYCD. Very small agency when you look at who we are in terms of all other city agencies. 500 staff, maybe 520. A budget of about $794 million in city tax levy, a little bit more federal and state money. And we manage programs across every single community board in the city of New York. So we have a huge footprint as a very small organization. Much of our work, all of our work, is done through contracted relationships with an illustrious catalog of community-based organizations across the entire city. So we do not do direct service. We work with organizations to support them financially and programmatically so that they engage in those direct service delivery efforts in local communities. In terms of how we serve New Yorkers, we served about 340,000 New Yorkers in fiscal year 2020, which was even more than we had anticipated, and particularly during the times of the pandemic. We mounted programs and initiatives such as Learning Labs, Summer Youth Employment Summer Bridge, and DYCD at Home. These were program efforts that were mounted in response to the pandemic and to the kind of crises that our families were facing. Our Runaway and Homeless Youth Program, our Compass programs, Beacon and Cornerstone programs became lifelines by providing food as well as PPE equipment. And much of that was coordinated through the efforts of DYCD and all of our subcontracted providers. We continue to address the needs of vulnerable and homeless youth, primarily through in-person programming. We made available a greater amount of beds, and we continue to work at optimal levels in meeting the needs of a very high-risk population. Tens of thousands of New Yorkers receive support through literacy, immigrant services, anti-poverty, and discretionary programs. The number of individuals trained by our capacity building unit has more than tripled due to the advent of online training. And we registered nearly 3,000 contracts by the end of the fiscal year. And equally as important, community-based organizations were paid in a timely manner. That has happened with the yeoman work of 500 plus people and the support of everybody in the city administration, including local community boards and local community-based organizations. Let me give you a sense of what the picture looks like in your board, because while you have a very diverse board, there are basically 9 to 10 programs that function inside of the geographic confines of what is CB6. You have a total funding allocation. I would say that it's in the range of $5.1 to $6 million, with the largest amount of your resources going into Compass after-school programming. And that's an after-school programming model that has been accepted nationally, and it has grown by leaps and bounds under the administration of Mayor de Blasio and Commissioner Chong. We currently have 5 programs that are running out of school-based efforts in Community District 6, starting with the high school at Union Square that is funded for an after-school program, and then middle schools. Manhattan Youth Recreation and Resources at Middle School 47, the American Sign Language and English Lower School.
Oh.
There's another partnership, and that's partnership is with SALT, MS 255. We have another partnership at Junior High School 104, the Simon Baruch School, and we have an additional partnership with University Settlement at the Institute for Collaborative Education. The average grant size for these partnerships is in the range of about $394,000. Your total grant value for these partnerships is closer to $2 million. And that's just Compass partnerships. As I indicated to you, the largest part of your portfolio is in Compass programming. We have another few efforts that have been mounted that we are still executing contracts on. Learning Labs, as you know, Learning Labs was one of the response to the crisis of working families and having to go back to work and not having appropriate childcare that would facilitate the decision-making of parents around remote learning or at-home educational experiences. And we're working with the YMCA and the New York City Parks Department on continuing to mount those efforts. Then we have some discretionary contracts, two discretionary contracts in particular. And just to give you the sense of what the distinction is between program money and discretionary money, it's all program money, but discretionary money is controlled solely and directly by the New York City Council. So the council puts up a share in an allocation to particular community-based organizations for designated program efforts that take place on a yearly basis. All of our contracts are annually renewed. In most cases, in all cases rather, every single contract that is procured by a community-based agency it's done as a result of what is called a request for proposal. And our proposal cycles are normally 3-year program cycles. So we go through an annual renewal based on performance. We do performance reviews. We do we look at all of the data that's going on inside of communities, and we look to see if there are unmet needs and there have to be adjustments made to the programmatic scope of some of the organizations. And then we move forward in making sure that the agencies have what they need to do their job. Some of the providers that are currently working in your district are Global Kids, is at the Campus High School. Manhattan Youth Recreation and Resources is at the Campus Middle School. That is the 47 and the Salk School, 255. And at the branch school as well. University Settlement is the partner for Institute for Collaborative Education. Learning labs will be based out of, in all likelihood, we don't have an exact location yet, but we think it is something that is called Rec Center 54 within the confines of CB6. And the YMCA will be joining those efforts as well with learning labs. Those are contracts that are still in process, but there's a definite commitment to maintain them. We also have a big programmatic effort around literacy and immigration services with 2 organizations that are going to be joining forces there. That's Wildcat Services Corporation and Make the Road New York. Again, these are programs that we are still working our way through, given that they are discretionary funding based. I've said a lot. Any questions up until now?
Yeah, let me first of all ask, is there a written version of that anywhere that we could get a hold of?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right.
We sent, Brendan, I believe, has a spreadsheet.
Yep, and I'm going to share it right now.
But I'll tell you what, that spreadsheet only tells you part of the story, because there is also, I think the easiest way to look at this data is to see it online. And I would recommend that you connect to DYCD Connect. It's a navigation-based system, and it'll show you by community district.
Oh, okay.
On the screen where every program is plotted in real time.
Okay, so we could, if we go to
the secondary part of that that's positive is you fill out one application for any single program that you want to apply for. It's not multiple applications, and you can do it all online.
Okay, so I guess you've asked my first question. So this spreadsheet at least has the names of those organizations that we can search.
Absolutely.
But the best way to do it is if we go to your webpage and we just put in CB6.
Just put in CB6. As a matter of CB6 is one of the fields. You just do the drop-down menus, perfect. Manhattan CB6, and it'll show you every single provider, the type of service they're delivering, the populations they're serving, hours of service, and days of service, as well as contacts.
Yeah, that's, and I want to designate, there's someone one of the community members who is not here. I was going to ask the volunteer to be a liaison with your organization, but I won't do that behind his back on the line. I will ask him. And with whom should we? And I'm going to open the floor to questions from others in a minute. But with whom should we deal at your organization? Should we deal with yourself, or
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I mean, my bailiwick are the 59 community-based organization, the community boards across the city. So
Okay,
I'm in constant contact with the borough boards, the borough service cabinets. I participate in the borough president meetings with the service cabinets. So there is a flow of information, and I can be your one-stop, point of contact.
and
And if
Brendan,
need be, I can move the resolution of issues across the agency to wherever it belongs.
can you also be in contact with Alexander, as a point on this? Though I will ask a committee member as well to take some accountability for this. Does that work okay for you to remain as a point of contact with DYCD?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, we can do that.
Great. I mean, I do want a member of the committee to be responsible. I just don't want to. I know the others who are here have other responsibilities they've taken on, so I just don't want to volunteer this person without asking them. But I would like someone on the committee to relate. The second, I have a couple of other really quick questions. When you say your program budget is controlled by the city council, is that the discretionary budgeting
The
process?
discretionary budget portion that the council controls is basically allocated through DYCD because we are a contracting agency. The council doesn't have the capacity to do that on their own.
Okay.
They allocate and we manage the process on their behalf.
So Ben Kalos, Keith Powers, and Carlina Rivera, our three council persons, would all allocate money to
Right.
you.
There's a public application process that takes place during the course of the fiscal year.
Okay. All right.
And that lays out the terms and conditions of discretionary funding. Normally, the council does a lot of their own outreach because they are closer to the ground with agencies than we are. So there may be new organizations they feel they want to support. In most cases, the allocations from the council are not big, but they do allow agencies some flexibility in pulling together events-based programming, particular initiatives that they might want to see paid more attention to than what the norm is.
Yeah, and it all adds up, I guess, is what you're saying.
It all adds up, yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to stop my questions there because I'm sure that council members have questions, and just to be honest, why don't we use that little raise hand icon at the bottom for anyone who has a question for Mr. Betancourt. I could go on and on with questions, but I'd rather give the committee members a chance to ask questions. Abby.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here and presenting. I was just wondering, since you mentioned immigrant services and working with homeless youth, how you work, if at all, with like the Department of Homeless Services or MOIA?
Yes, we have a collaborative partnership through something that is called the Interagency Coordinating Council, where we're in constant communication with each other. Because there is some distinction in mission, we have a catalog of organizations that we program with, and we inform those other agencies of activities that we're engaged in local neighborhoods. So there is that kind of dialogue. We have a strong external affairs division. I'm part of that division. So there is constant interchange and contact with other city agencies.
Abby, does that answer your question? Good, okay.
Yeah, that's great. Good to know. Thanks.
Claude.
Well, what we don't do is that we don't usurp what the mission of ACS is. We don't usurp what the mission of DHS is, but we try to be complementary in every case. And in some cases, we bring additional resources to larger efforts that are taking place at community levels.
Thank you. Claude.
Yeah, I have several questions. I'm not familiar with the Compass program. Is that similar to what used to be the Beacon program? Or do you still have?
No, it's a matter of fact, it's an offshoot of the Beacon, because as you know, the Beacons were the first foray of DYCD into the public schools on a programming basis.
Yeah,
The
I
Beacons
know.
were unique in that they are now going into year 26. And the Beacon model essentially says you deliver services to everybody, regardless of who attends that school, community-wide. And the school becomes the central locus point for service delivery. So it's a marriage between a community-based organization and a school, but it's not exclusive solely to the students and families of that school. For instance, we run Beacon programming and activities for seniors inside of those public schools. We run activities for immigrant communities inside of those schools because we pay for those, we pay for the location. Let's put it that way. Part of our contract with agencies picks up the cost of school openings. And the Beacons are the hallmark program.
I'm familiar with the Beacon. I'm not familiar with the Compass. That's what I'm asking. What's the difference?
Compass is a real traditional after school that runs from 3 to 6 p.m. Selected schools across the city that were identified by the Board of Ed. We partner with community-based agencies for the delivery of structured after-school services, being that many of our families are working families and don't get home until after 6 p.m. So those kids are in a safe place and in the same school, attending a range of services delivered by community-based agencies.
So you
And
might
it's
have a number
everything
of
from
classrooms.
cultural enrichment, arts and recreation, leadership development, robotics, math tutoring, English tutoring, tutoring in all of the content areas. And the staffing model is unique in that we pair teachers working side by side with community-based organization staff. It is our biggest program by far.
And under the discretionary budget of the city council, isn't it possible that we may have other funding in our community board by our council members that is not shown here?
Yes, it is possible. These are contracts that are only coming through DYCD. There are other efforts being made through other agencies, but that gets managed by the council.
Okay, thank you.
We have any other questions? This is, I view this as a beginning of a dialogue rather than a self-contained event. Alexander, I see no other hands. So Alexander, just off the top of your head, how could we help you? I mean, what could we do for you? I mean,
I can share with you, I think you guys have a tremendous pulpit, okay? You have a business community that's there with you. I think you can probably be very helpful to us in our SYEP efforts by recruiting businesses and recruiting and creating opportunities for young people to work and thrive.
Yeah, I was
as you know,
yeah, I was going to ask.
We took a big hit this year. You know, we went from 70,000 slots down to 35,000 that we cobbled together. Thankfully, we had the support of the council and the mayor to pull together some type of program effort. But the expectations are this year that we go back to 70,000 slots. And that takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of money, but it also takes a lot of work. You know, the business community that has been so deeply affected by the pandemic didn't have the opportunity to say, I want to participate in summer programming like I've done for the last 10 years. So it's how do we drum up the support that we need and get some doors open for kids to work as interns? You know, these are monies that are being paid to them, not by the businesses that we recruit. These are basically stipended positions in federal and city and state monies that pay the salaries of these young people that are out there working.
Okay, so the summer youth employment was a question I was going to ask you. So let's.
I think that would be the biggest area of help that we would
so
need.
let me talk to the person that I was going to ask to liaise with you, and any material that you could send the office, Brendan, related to the summer youth employment program, because
absolutely, I will do that.
As your background suggests, we are getting nearer to the summer there, so we will.
I will do that, sir.
Okay, well, I'd like to thank you very much for being here. And as I say, this is, we wanted to get you here. This is only the second formal meeting of this committee. And we wanted to get someone from your department here early on so that we could begin a relationship. So hopefully.
You know what I would like to do is to make one suggestion that I think would add a little more flavor and insight into what's really going on with young people inside of these schools. You can invite these agencies to your meetings. You can have roundtable discussions with them about what the programming issues are and what it looks like for them as partners with any one of these given schools.
Like Compass, for example.
Yeah, it begins to open your eyes and you begin to develop a deeper appreciation for what it really looks like at the ground level. What kinds of issues are those young people really struggling with?
Okay, that's
It's something that a lot of the boards are beginning to do now.
which boards are beginning to do this?
I have it happening up in Riverdale in the Bronx. I have it happening up in about 4 different boards that I can share with you that I'm familiar with right now.
Yeah,
That are moving in this direction.
In the time being, if you would share that with the office with Brendan, which boards,
Absolutely.
which people you're working
I
with.
mean, the intent is, the more people that know, the more support is out there for the efforts that are being made. And I think, it's how this city does its business. We pull together in terms of crisis always. That's what makes New Yorkers different. And I think that there's a feeling that people need to feel connected again. There's been a lot of disconnection just with the offsite learning. Kids miss the rhythm of the school day. Kids miss the buildings. We all understand the issues of public safety, but it doesn't replace the kind of camaraderie.
Believe me, we're right in the middle. I'm right in the middle of that discussion at 2 of my kids. Okay, I'm going to respect your time. We've taken a half hour of your time, and you waited a few minutes patiently. So, and I always, whenever I cut something, I'm always saying I'm going to a rain check for more of your time later. So
I hope that I was helpful, and if I can be of any additional help, please feel free to call.
we will. You might regret asking, suggesting.
I appreciate the opportunity to have met with all of you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you a lot.
Take care. Have a nice evening.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Committee members, I think that was really useful. I was going to ask Phil to be the liaison with this group, but I really ought to wait until he and ask him in person. And he did indicate he had something on his agenda tonight. And I know Neil and Sean have been working hard at PS 116 and other schools, and I don't want to load them up right now. And I know Abby's got plenty on her plate. So, all right. So let's move on
Dad.
and try to stay. Yes.
Just before we move on, I want to note for the record that there was a question from the public
Oh,
about which high school in Union Square, but I think
that would be
it was answered by the screen share. It looks like the International High School at Union Square.
Is that it?
Yeah, I think so.
Is that Clinton though, which has the international program? It has the international baccalaureate. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's confirm that. If that's wrong, we will correct it. Okay. Thank you. And I should have asked if there were questions from the public. Before Mr. Betancourt left, that was on me. I was aware of the passage of time. Thank you. Thanks, Abby. Thank you very much. And okay, so now the next item is on the agenda is the chair's report. And what I have done here is I will make a very brief report, but what I've asked here is to include 2 resolutions that I believe Brendan circulated to you today. Brendan, did you have a chance to get those out to the committee members?
Yes.
Okay.
Both resolutions were sent to committee members.
Okay.
Just let me know which resolution you want me to share. And
I would like to start with the one on fair student funding, because I think that's a little more complex than it needs a little more explanation for people not familiar with the
okay, that's the
Stringer. Holding students harmless, the school's harmless, okay. And as Brendan's putting that up, I'll just report to the committee to save time that I had an extensive meeting with Executive Superintendent Marisol Rosales of Manhattan last week, and we are looking into developing what we hope is a robust program around re-envisioning learning in our schools in the post-pandemic era. But there are lots of pieces that have to fall in place, and we're hoping to do that in April, just as a note to the committee. So what I'd like to do tonight is I have two resolutions, one of which I've hinted at several meetings, but this is Controller Stringer wrote a letter that many of you may have seen, and I can certainly get a copy to you if you wish, calling for the New York City Department of Education to hold schools harmless for the budgetary impacts of enrollment declines due to COVID-19. Now, I've been mentioning this in several meetings where this is a big issue because schools depend on what is called, and I'm going to give you a very quick primer on this, and I could go offline as much as any of you want to talk about this, and Claude is certainly aware of how complex this could get. But most schools depend for their funding directly related, all schools depend for their funding directly related to teaching kids in the classroom on something called fair student funding. And what fair student funding does in a nutshell is allocates money to the school based on the students in the school. And I'm just going to give you a quick sense of the scope of this so you know why it is important. I pulled up today on the DOE website. Let's take you have a kid, a middle school kid, grade 6 to 8, okay? And the school gets $4,469.21 for each general education kid in middle school, grade 6 to 8. Now, if that kid also is in a family that is defined as well below the poverty line, and there are different definitions of these things, they get an additional $2,069.97. So for that kid, that school gets $6,539 in funding. If that kid is also an English language learner, it gets another additional $2,070. So that means that kid brings with him or her $8,600 to the school. And if the kid has a need of intense special education needs, which the definition of which we could go into at length, the kid brings another $4,886 to the school. So a kid with intense special education needs, who's an English language learner and well below the poverty line, brings the school $13,486. If that kid leaves the school has to return the money if the kid doesn't show up. Now, so you could go even for a kid in general ed, 6 to 8, with no special needs, no English language learner, above the poverty line, like many of our kids are fortunate to be, but we all have complexities in lives. That kid brings $4,500. And right now, the New York City school system is down 43,000 and some kids. And some schools have been affected much more deeply than others. And the controller cites one school that owes 600,000 back. He didn't break it out, but I'm going to take the controller, since that's his job, to be accurate on numbers like this, at his word. So what he's asking here is that instead of having, so these schools are all of a sudden with the PAs, they're faced with having to return this money. And, they've probably already spent it. And, especially in this environment. And also schools were required under the blended learning contract with the UFT to hire substitute teachers you know, if to teach some of the classes that were being offered. So what the controller is suggesting is an amnesty for 1 year, that schools that have lost kids and lost budgeting due to the loss of kids, and that's as quick as I could explain it all, be given an amnesty. And something similar was done after the Great Recession in 2007 and 8, and it was done in 2013 when the impact was felt. So there is a precedent for this. And, you know, to me, it's a fairly, to me, this is sort of my own personal opinion as someone who supports this is a no-brainer, that these schools that are going to lose funding because of COVID-19 should not be penalized with having to pay back the money from the kids that left this year, okay, and weren't there, didn't show up for whatever reasons. And as the resolution notes, many families made difficult and personal decisions to leave the system for a variety of reasons, including but not limited to lack of clarity from the city regarding how and when schools would reopen. That was done terribly. Unexpected delays in planning openings, health and safety concerns about the school environments, as well as getting back and forth on subways. And then much confusion about the hybrid blended learning options that just frustrated many people. And we're hoping that these kids come back next year, okay? So this resolution simply supports the control. The controller is doing a detailed study of this, an analysis of this that I look forward to seeing. But I thought that Community Board 6 could add its support to a very, you know, worthy effort on part of Controller Stringer. And I invite any discussion from the committee. Okay, I mean, if there is no discussion, then I'd ask for I can't make a motion as a chair, but I would ask for a motion to move the resolution.
So moved.
So Claude has moved. Do we have a second?
Seconded.
Okay, so it's moved and seconded. Brendan, do you want to take care of the vote, whatever the proper procedure here is for the vote?
Yes. So I will call your name, and when I call your name, please say whether you are in favor, opposed, abstain, or abstain for cause. Neil Barclay.
In favor.
John Keller.
In favor?
Abigail Cruzmark.
In favor.
Sean Sherman.
In favor.
And Claudel Winfield.
In favor.
The resolution passes with 5 in favor, none opposed, nobody abstaining, and nobody abstaining for cause.
And thank you very much. I think this just gives a boost to the controller. And there's much more in his proposal that requires getting into the minutiae of fair student funding. If any of you are interested, you could go to the Department of Education website and look up how the schools are funded. I'd be happy to guide you through this process. I actually had, years ago, someone from the mayor's budget office guide me through it. And there's also something called the school-based expenditure report. If you're familiar with the business world, you can think of the funding. There are 74 funding memoranda, of which the Fair Student Funding Memorandum is the largest. You can think of that as the sources of funds, and then you could go to the school-based expenditure report, and you can think of that as the uses of funds. And it's actually quite interesting. You can see how the $32 billion gets spent at the highest level and then across the board. If you're, for those of you who are sick enough to be interested in that, like myself. Okay. Brenda, could you put the second resolution up?
Sure, I will do that right now.
this is a resolution that actually goes back to something that Abby brought to our attention from a member of the public at a meeting a couple of meetings back, and it's about food security and the role that schools play in food security. And Abby, if you remember the name of that person from the public, it would be nice if we told her that we really did listen to her and moved on what she suggested. And public advocate Mr. Giovanni Williams has introduced to the City Council Intro 2057, 2020, technically a law which would amend the administrative code of the City of New York in relation to establishing an emergency student food plan. And the intro is supported by several council members, including Ben Kalos, our own Ben Kalos. So I thought it would be useful to support something that Ben is putting some energy into as well. And basically, what the resolution says is that the Department of Education really did step up during the pandemic, and had provided more than 1,000 locations for food-to-go meals for kids that, even though the schools were closed, provided more than 1,000 locations. And I think what the person who was speaking at our meeting and what Mr. Williams notes here is that was highly commendable, really very responsive by the mayor and the chancellor. But there's nothing that says in the future, if we have a problem, that this has to continue, that this has to be done again. So what the resolution does is it requires, as it says, the Office of Emergency Management to create a plan that would ensure the DOE, which already provides breakfast, lunch, and dinner to public school students, to continue to provide these meals in the event of school closures ordered by the governor, mayor, or school's chancellor in the future. So basically it's saying, let's just make sure that this safety net is in place for our kids. And as I think I've mentioned before, one of the most painful meetings I would go to when I was on the Community Education Council every year was when the school food people would come in. And by the way, if you want to look at the school-based expenditure report, you can see how much money is invested in this. Just tell us how many kids depend on are going to school for their one hot meal a day, and it really it used to make me almost cry to hear it. So basically, what we're saying here is that this is a priority of Community Board 6, that we regard the assuring the food security of our children as important, as a high priority, and we support and we ask the council to pass and the mayor to sign into law Intro 2057. Do we have any questions? Any questions on that? Claude?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
What I'm going to say, I agree with the resolution, but what I'm going to say is a little off the resolution.
Got it.
It's a wonderful job that they're doing in providing the food, the breakfasts, and the afternoon meals. But I think that maybe after passage of a resolution like this, there needs to be a look into the actual foods that they're distributing to the kids. Let me just give you an example. On a daily basis, the breakfasts that they give out will have something like cereal, chocolate milk, orange juice, and yogurt, for example. Most of those cereals have over 100 milligrams of salt in them. And then they will average 6 to 9 grams of sugar. Now, the chocolate milk is 25 grams of sugar. The orange juice is 13 grams of sugar. The yogurt is 14 grams of sugar. We have to be careful, even though we're meeting the needs of food insecurity, we have to be more diligent and careful about what we're giving to our children on a daily basis that leads to additional problems in terms of obesity, et cetera. This is not to your resolution,
No, I
That's a
got
good
it. It's a good
resolution.
point. It's a great point, though.
but I mean, that's on a daily basis. That's a lot of sugar and salt that's being distributed to our children. And we need to be mindful of that.
Yeah, let's, Abby, you had your hand up, but I want to figure out a constructive way to address that. But Abby, you had your hand up.
No, I agree. I agree with Claude. I don't know if it necessarily needs to be addressed in this resolution, but I think it's definitely worth looking into.
Yeah, I'm trying to, yeah, first of all, yes.
And then I have another comment. Sorry.
Oh, then why don't you make another comment?
Oh, okay. So I just pulled up the notes from November. The person who initially brought this to our attention was Catherine Farquharson. I believe she was a CUNY graduate student at the School of Public Health. So I actually think it's worth circling back with her just to let her know. And I can do it, but I don't have her email. I'm sure the office does. Just to know that we're sort of moving forward on this, and then maybe she can connect us with other resources to look into the sort of content of the food. I think that would be
Well, that would
pursuing.
kill multiple birds with one stone. First of all, it would address the issue that Claude raises. We could ask her, we could perhaps ask her to a future meeting. Now I'm starting to see the agendas filling. Kyle, goodness. But we could ask her to, if the School of Public Health at CUNY has taken any views on this or has done any studies of this. I think that's a very good idea. I mean, I'm really with it. And also at our last executive board meeting, someone suggested that we think about how we can engage CUNY as an educational institution in the work of this committee. So I think we could check that one as an objective as well. Thank you very much, Abby.
And then I have one more thing, if you'll let me.
No.
I would maybe reword the second to last paragraph. I had to read it a couple of times.
Oh, okay, I wrote it fast, so go ahead.
I would say Manhattan Community Board 6 prioritizes the food security of our children in general and specifically in future emergencies.
I accept that as a friendly amendment. If anybody else, unless there's any objection. I think since I accept it as a friendly amendment, Brendan, we don't have to vote on it. We just could change the wording.
Nope, and I already changed the wording live on screen.
I should have known. Okay, all right. So we've had a really good point raised by Claude, and we might be opening up a much bigger issue, because when I think of what you're describing there, that's just breakfast, so, but I still would like to move ahead with the reso. So
Do see, sorry to interrupt, John, but actually staying on the note of Claude's concern, I see that a member of the public, Lily, I'm going to botch the last name, but Lily Nugian, raised similar concerns, asking how much sugar is fed to our kids, my students, each day.
And I guess we should tell them that we're addressing that, Mr. Nugian. First of all, thank you for raising the question. And we're going to actually address that with, hopefully, through the CUNY School of Public Health, and asking whether they have taken a look at this. And that's a really good question that, frankly, I had not thought of. So thank you, Claude and Mr. Nugian, and very much. Does Mr. Nugian have any follow-up questions? Because I do like to be sure that when members of the public go to the trouble of coming to our meeting, that we pay attention to them.
No follow-up questions at the moment, but if there are, I will be sure to raise them.
I appreciate it. Okay, so.
Is it in order for me to move it?
Yes, could someone move the resolution?
I move it.
Claude has moved the resolution. Do we have
The friendly amendment, with the adoption of the friendly amendment,
with the friendly amendment? Very good.
as it is.
Any second on that?
Seconded.
Okay, and Brendan, could you take the vote on this?
Yes. So when I call your name, please say whether you are in favor, opposed, abstain, or abstain for cause. Neil Barclay,
Favor.
John Keller,
In favor.
Abigail Cruzmark,
In favor.
Sean Sherman,
In favor.
and Claudel Winfield.
In favor.
With 5 in favor, nobody opposed, nobody abstaining, and nobody abstaining for cause, the resolution passes.
Thank you. And Kyle Atide, our board chair, is here. So we have 5 minutes before we've used up an hour of people's time. And I would invite Kyle, do you have any comments or observations you would like to make?
No, all good here. Really proud of the committee. And Abby, I'll send you the contact info for the student because her and I had continued the conversation afterwards. So yeah, thank you, everybody.
Okay, all right. And I will report back as soon as we have some information related to a forum managed by by principals and people of the DOE, but it's still a work in process. I guess, could I just adjourn the meeting or do I need a motion to adjourn the meeting? I will, unless
I
there
can
was no
supply the
objection.
motion.
If you finished all of the business, you can adjourn the meeting.
If there is no objection, I will adjourn the meeting at 7:32 p.m.
Thank you.
And thank you all for being here and for the really constructive comments. That was great. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.